At some point in your life, you may have internalized the message that doing things with the motivation of because I want to is a superior form of motivation to doing things because you have to. AKA, you were told that intrinsic motivation is objectively better than extrinsic motivation. But if you're anything like me, or like a lot of us with ADHD, that message may feel a little bit more condemning than inspiring, because immediately you start to think of all of the times that you've needed external deadlines, needed the pressure of somebody coming over to clean up, needed to book an in-person workout class just to get yourself outside of the house, or needed to book a co-working slot just to get anything done. And that brings with it a lot of shame. If you've ever stared at a basic household task that you know that you can do, a self-care activity that you know would be good for you, or just a textbook chapter that you genuinely want to understand and just wondered to yourself, why can't I just do it? Then this video is for you. Because fear, stress, pressure, and consequences are not the only way to get things done. If you're new here, hi, I'm Anna. I have a master's degree in neuroscience and cognition, and I have been clinically diagnosed with ADHD. I share strategies and stories that are both science-informed and based on my lived experience to help us all live better anti-burnout lives with our busy, ambitious brain. So let's dive in. The just do it mentality doesn't work for a lot of us, and for those of us with ADHD, it often doesn't work at all. Feeling like you're failing to just want it enough to get it done can quickly turn into shame. Shame about needing external pressure, shame about not having real motivation, shame about being an autonomous adult who relies on urgency, social expectations, accountability, or pressure to get anything done. But even when you want to do better, you may still not want to do the task. This is a motivation issue, not a moral failing, but probably not in the way that you think it's a motivation issue. So in this video, I'm going to teach you how you can increase your intrinsic motivation for almost anything. But first, we need to explain some things. In this video, we're going to talk about 3 different types of motivation: intrinsic, extrinsic, and achievement. Intrinsic motivation is doing something because it is interesting, meaningful, or enjoyable in and of itself. You like the doing part of it and you want the doing part of it. Extrinsic motivation is doing something to get a reward or to avoid a punishment or some other sort of negative consequence. You like and want the reward, and you would like and want to avoid the punishment. And achievement motivation is doing something because you want to do it well or prove that you are skilled and competent. Most people end up being taught either explicitly or implicitly that intrinsic motivation is sort of the gold standard of motivation, that this is the best kind. And to be fair, a lot of research does show that when people tend to be intrinsically motivated, they tend to show greater persistence, greater results, more creativity, and better psychological well-being overall. If you're like me, you may even enter a hyperfocus or flow state when you work on something intrinsically motivating, like I was when I was writing the script for this YouTube video. But here's the part that often gets left out. People feel the greatest sense of intrinsic motivation when they have autonomy. That means they have to feel like they are choosing the task, not that they are being forced into it. This is one of the core ideas in self-determination theory, which you'll hear me go on and on about all the time. This theory basically suggests that people thrive when 3 basic needs are met: autonomy, competence, and relatedness, or connection to others. But with the autonomy part, it basically says that when you want to do something, it usually feels better to do it. Because while yes, sometimes the things that suck do just have to get done, doing everything under fear, pressure, or obligation too often can take a real toll on your nervous system. It creates some sinister bouts of chronic stress and undesired emotions that can fast track us into burnout. If you can figure out how to increase intrinsic motivation, even just a little bit, you're not just helping yourself get things done. You're making everything a little bit more enjoyable, a little bit more wonderful, a little bit more meaningful. You're protecting your psychological well-being, and you're likely to perform better. So now let's chat about how ADHD changes the motivation equation a little bit. If you're like me and you have ADHD, you might recognize yourself in the acronym PINCH. PINCH is a shorthand for the conditions where motivation usually shows up best. P for play or passion, I for interest, N for novelty, C for challenge, cooperation, or competition, and H for hurry up, which stands in place of the word urgency. This framework seems to have been popularized by the ADHD community online rather than being something that I can trace back to a single research paper, but if you do know who coined the term, I would love to know, so let me know down in the comments. Either way, PINCH aligns remarkably well with what motivation research consistently shows. ADHD brains tend to struggle with long-term abstract rewards. Behaviorally, we're more likely to choose a smaller reward that's closer in time to us than delay our gratification and choose the larger reward that's further away in time. This is a phenomenon called temporal discounting. So if the reward for doing a task now is far away, vague, or purely hypothetical, and there's something else that we can get sooner that is a smaller but faster hit of stimulation, it becomes a lot harder to choose the thing we should do for the long-term reward over the distracting short-term available reward. Now, I can sense through the screen that you are still feeling kind of bad about yourself because of this, so listen to me carefully. Struggling with delayed gratification is not a moral failing. Overvaluing fast access to rewards does not make you a bad person. And just because somebody else is good at delayed gratification does not make them a more moral or better person than you. And if we follow along with the dopamine hypothesis of ADHD, our brains are more reward seeking due to probably having lower baseline levels of dopamine. Dopamine is a key neurotransmitter involved in motivation, learning, anticipating reward, and initiation of movement, among many other things. So it is complex. But this is why we think medication helps with more than just attention regulation. But as always, I am a huge advocate for both pills and skills, and none of this is medical advice, so please chat to your doctor. We're just all learning together. Now, I was inspired to make this video thanks to my friend Annika, also known as NutriMind Lab, who you should definitely go subscribe to and follow on all the places if you want to learn about ADHD and the nutrition research side of things. But a few months ago, Annika shared a TikTok video that hit a nerve with a lot of people. Annika also has a psychology background, and she talked about how early in her psychology education, she was taught that intrinsic motivation was objectively better, and also that people who are intrinsically motivated tended to have better outcomes, which the research does show. So sitting there in class, she started feeling bad because she thought, wait, I need extrinsic motivation to be able to get almost anything done. If she wanted to clean her room, somebody had to be coming over. If she wanted to cook a good meal, she had to be sharing it with somebody. If she wanted to get good grades, she had to want to impress her professor. She felt like intrinsic motivation had never really worked for her. And a lot of us can relate to this. But when it comes to the better outcome side of things, I think we need to give Annika her flowers because she has a master's degree. She's one of the leading experts in ADHD nutrition research and sharing that online. She runs her own business and she wrote a recipe book. So I think on the outcome side of things, Annika actually is doing pretty excellent, if you ask me. And this just shows that Annika found ways to work around her apparent lack of intrinsic motivation. And finding these sorts of systems is great, and it's an important skill to learn because motivation is kind of fleeting sometimes. But when Annika shared this video, I commented something that I still stand by. Learning how to increase intrinsic motivation changed my life. Not by replacing all extrinsic motivation with it, but by layering on top of that, allowing me to find things more enjoyable, more meaningful, and more engaging. Because it doesn't have to be either or when it comes to the type of motivation involved in doing a task. Extrinsic motivation is not less than. It's not something that you have to be above. So needing external structure or deadlines is not bad or wrong. Deadlines, accountability, and rewards all work, especially for those of us with ADHD. So the issue isn't using them, but it's relying on them alone. When everything is powered by pressure, fear, or urgency, burnout is basically inevitable. So here's the reframe I wish that we were taught sooner. Intrinsic motivation is not something you either have or don't have. It is something you can cultivate and grow and build, even for tasks that start out as purely extrinsic. So let's break down how to learn to want to do the work. When I was doing my undergrad and we were learning about motivation, my psychology professor at the time gave me the ultimate toolbox for learning how to build intrinsic motivation, and now I'm sharing it with all of you. All it takes is 4 questions. Now, he meant these as a way to improve our intrinsic motivation for studying, but I've actually found they work for almost anything. And the way they work is by encouraging you to gently invite interest. Before we dive into the questions, they rely on you actually just attempting the task even for like 5 minutes or so. You do have to get up and engage with it. Now, step 1. Find the most interesting thing. After engaging with the task for even like 5 minutes, ask yourself, what was the most interesting thing I learned or did? Now, what makes something interesting is obviously different for different people, but if we use the perspective and definition of interest as an emotion, it needs to have some sort of novelty complexity element. So what about this thing or an aspect of this task is new, unexpected, complex, hard to grasp, surprising, mysterious, or obscure? Even boring tasks usually contain something interesting if you engage with them. Now, interest sparks curiosity, which we'll chat about in a bit. Step 2. Connect it to real life. Ask yourself, where does this show up in the real world? Our brains care more when something feels real and useful. When a task or a piece of information in your textbook explains something that you've noticed or experienced or struggled with, the perceived value of this information or task increases a lot. This is how you shift ideas from abstract to concrete. Step 3, make it personal. Ask yourself, how does this apply to me, my life, my goals, or my loved ones? Self-relevant information, or information that relates to you, is processed a little bit differently in our brains. We end up engaging with it more deeply and remembering it better. This is also why identity-based goals tend to stick a lot more than outcome-based goals. So when a task or process connects deeply to who you are, who you're becoming, or somebody that you care deeply about, it stops feeling pointless and starts to feel very meaningful. And step 4, let curiosity lead. Ask yourself, what else would I like to explore about this? This turns a daunting obligation into a doorway of potential. Instead of thinking, oh no, I have to finish this, it turns it into, I wonder where this could lead. I wonder what else I could know. Curiosity also creates a signal in your brain's reward circuits. Not because you accomplished the task, but because there's something to gain, there's more to explore. You're anticipating that something you find out will be rewarding. And it's exciting because you don't know when exactly this reward might pop up. And interestingly, curiosity and impulsivity seem to be deeply linked to each other. So here's something I want to say explicitly to all of us who struggle with impulsivity and hyperactivity. A lot of us are not just impulsive and hyperactive. We also have really high trait curiosity. When we work on ourselves to let go of learned helplessness and shame, this curiosity can be one of our greatest strengths and assets. This is based on some newer research that I'm hoping to get into in an upcoming video, so if you have any questions about ADHD and trait curiosity, please leave them in the comments below. So I hope you've learned that intrinsic motivation doesn't mean that you have to love and enjoy the task immediately. It just asks you to follow the tiny threads of interest, value, personal relevance, and curiosity to get where you want to go and to help yourself get going without burning out. Now, just a quick reality check and something to help you take action. Extrinsic and achievement motivation still matter and are still useful. Deadlines, rewards, accountability, gamification, all of these things can be a great help. The goal with intrinsic motivation isn't to have some purified moral form of motivation. It's just to make your efforts a little bit more sustainable and a little bit more enjoyable and meaningful to you. So let's practice. Pick one task you've been avoiding and ask yourself, what's one interesting thing here? Where does this show up in real life? How does this matter to me? And what would I like to explore next? If you've made it to this point in the video, I would love to hear in the comments, what was your biggest takeaway from this video? Do you think you will try these 4 questions? And of course, let me know if you have any requests for upcoming content. I would love to talk more about motivation and curiosity and getting going and productivity. And of course, I would love for you to subscribe and turn notifications on so that you don't miss anything from me. Share this video if you found it useful, because I have been using these tips for the better part of 6 years and they have genuinely changed my life. Thank you for spending time with me today, and as always, stay curious, stay connected, and turn your potential into action.